No one speaks of this truth, but before creation, a confession was made that forever altered our destiny. What if the most beautiful being ever made was a masterpiece of a lie, and the single greatest betrayal in all of history was born not from darkness, but from the very heart of light itself? We've been told a story, a simple one of good versus evil, but what if the real story is so much more intricate, so much more agonizingly human? I want you to lean in and feel the weight of these words, because what we're about to uncover will shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew. This isn't just a story, it's a living, breathing testament to the power of choice, and it holds the key to the ultimate redemption of your soul. As we journey into the heart of this ancient secret, take a moment and let me know in the comments below if you've ever felt a quiet lie trying to whisper you away from your own light. And if you're ready to find healing from that whisper, subscribe and hit the like button. In the beginning, before the world was shaped from void, there was a host of angels, and among them one shone brighter than all others. His name was Lucifer, the light-bearer, the son of the morning, a being of such exquisite beauty and profound wisdom that he was considered the very jewel of God's creation. He was clothed in a mantle of living light, and his form was adorned with the most precious of stones, the ruby, the emerald, the sapphire, and the diamond, each one sparkling with the truth of his divine purpose. He walked in the hallowed halls of heaven, upon the very mountain of God, and was appointed as a guardian of the Creator's throne. His perfection was complete. His music was a symphony of praise, and his heart was pure. But a whisper of ambition, a serpent's subtle hiss, began to stir in the heart of this perfect being. Lucifer looked upon his own unmatched glory and mistook it for a strength born of himself, not a gift from the one who had created him. In a heart once pure, a wicked thought began to take root. He saw the adoration of the angels and the perfect order of heaven, and a question full of poison formed in his mind. Why should I not be the one to receive this praise? Why should I not sit upon a throne of my own? The light-bearer, who had been created to reflect the glory of God, now yearned to capture that glory for himself. His wisdom, once a guide, now became a tool for his own devious purpose. He began to corrupt his own perfection for the sake of his splendor, whispering words of discontent and self-importance to the angels who served him. The thoughts of his heart became an audacious declaration. I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. This was the ultimate betrayal, the creature daring to become the Creator. Lucifer's rebellion was not a moment of sudden anger, but a slow, calculated plan, woven with cunning and false promises. He drew a great portion of the angelic host to his side, a third of the stars of heaven following the morning star in his dark descent. These angels, blinded by his radiance and seduced by his promises of freedom and power, turned their backs on the source of all light. They chose to follow a leader who had chosen himself. The heavens, once a place of perfect harmony, were now torn asunder by the dissent and the bitter conflict of a civil war. And so, a great war broke out in heaven. On one side stood Michael, the archangel, a mighty and righteous warrior, and his legions of faithful angels. They fought for the honor and justice of God. On the other side stood the great dragon, that ancient serpent, now a being of twisted beauty and fiery malice, and the angels who had joined his rebellion, The light-bearer, once a guardian of the throne, now became its bitter enemy. The celestial battlefield was a theater of divine power and terrifying destruction, as light clashed with shadow and loyalty with treason. The air, once filled with hymns of praise, now rang with the sound of heavenly battle. Swords of light met with fire, and the cries of the fallen echoed through the vastness of the cosmos. The conflict was a test of loyalty and a testament to the unassailable power of the Creator. Despite the strength and cunning of the light-bearer, his cause was doomed from the start. He was a created being fighting against his Maker, a mere reflection challenging the very sun. Michael, with the strength of divine righteousness, and his host fought with a fury born of their unwavering faith. They were not merely fighting a war, they were fulfilling a sacred duty. The light-bearer and his legions were not strong enough to stand against the might of the Most High. Their rebellion, born of pride, was crushed with a finality that shook the foundations of creation. And in a moment of ultimate judgment, the great dragon was cast out. He was hurled down from the heights of heaven, a blinding fall that was 1,000 times more painful than any earthly torment. The light-bearer, once clothed in light, was now a being of pure darkness. His name, Lucifer, was stripped from him, and he was forever known as Satan, the adversary, the devil, the accuser. The rebellious angels with him were also cast down, their glory extinguished, and their forms corrupted. Their fall was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new, more sinister one. Cast down from the divine realm, the adversary and his fallen angels found a new dominion in the deepest parts of creation, a realm of fire and suffering he would rule. But the light-bearer, now the Lord of darkness, could not be content with his kingdom of torment. His hatred and malice were too great. He roamed the young world, which had just been fashioned for a new race of beings, mankind, created in the very image of God. This new creation became the primary target of his unending rebellion. He saw in them a reflection of the Creator he so despised and a chance to wound the heart of God. In his cunning, he transformed himself into a serpent, a creature of guile and poison. He entered the Garden of Eden and whispered lies into the ears of the first man and woman. He sowed seeds of doubt and desire, tempting them with the very pride that had caused his own downfall. He promised them knowledge and power, a chance to be like God, and they succumbed to his deception. In that moment, sin entered the world, and all of mankind was subjected to its corrupting influence. From that day forth, the morning star who had been so beautiful became the father of lies, the accuser of the brethren, and the great deceiver of nations. He stalks the earth, seeking whom he may devour, his whispers a constant temptation to human hearts. He is the author of sin, the cause of sorrow, and the source of all evil in the world. Yet, in all his malice, he knows his final defeat is certain. The Scriptures foretell a time when he will be bound for 1,000 years, and ultimately cast into a lake of fire for all eternity, a final, unyielding judgment for his rebellion against the Most High. The light-bearer who chose darkness will one day face the full and final consequences of his choice. His story is a powerful, sorrowful echo of a lesson for all of creation, that pride is a fatal flaw, a poison that can turn the most beautiful and perfect being into the most bitter and hateful of creatures. Thus concludes the account of the light-bearer's fall. And so it was, after the great fall, that the morning star, now known as Satan, the adversary, the great dragon, found his domain not in the heavens he had lost, but in the hearts and minds of a new and vulnerable creation. He had successfully poisoned the paradise of Eden, corrupting the perfect innocence of man, and he set forth to expand his kingdom of malice across the entire world. The world, once a place of effortless beauty, was now subjected to his will. The thorns and thistles sprang from the ground, the very earth groaning under the weight of sin. And the first sorrow, the first grief, entered the world with the first generations of mankind. In those days, Adam and Eve bore 2 sons, Cain and Abel. Cain, the elder, was a tiller of the ground, and Abel was a shepherd of flocks. These 2, brothers by blood, were the first inheritors of a world that was no longer pristine, a world now stalked by the serpent. When the time came for them to make an offering to their Creator, Abel, with a pure and humble heart, brought the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. His gift was offered with true faith, and it was accepted. But Cain, with a heart already heavy with resentment, brought a gift from the ground. His offering was given with a grudging spirit, and so it was rejected. And in that rejection, the light-bearer, now a master of subtle torment, saw his opportunity. He whispered into Cain's ear, a voice that was both a lie and a bitter truth. He fanned the flames of jealousy and resentment in the brother's soul, twisting the righteous grief of a rejected offering into a consuming rage. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." This was the warning, the clear choice placed before him. But the serpent's voice was louder, and its promise of power over his own emotions was more appealing. It whispered to him of injustice and unequal love. And so Cain yielded to the temptation. The rage that had consumed his heart now consumed his actions. He lured his brother Abel out into a field, and there, in a moment of utter darkness, he rose up against him and murdered him. The first sin had brought shame, but this was the first murder. This was the first spilling of innocent blood. The ground itself cried out for justice. And the adversary watched, a bitter triumph in his heart, for he had not only led one man to sin, but had corrupted the very bonds of family and love, proving that his poison could turn a brother against a brother. The adversary continued his work through the generations, a patient and cunning foe. He was the whisperer in the courts of kings, inciting them to unjust wars and to tyranny over their people. He was the seducer in the hearts of nations, turning them toward the worship of false idols and to the practice of perversion and cruelty. He was the author of all the great lies that have plagued mankind, that the self is supreme, that power is justice, and that the Creator is a distant and uncaring entity. He inspired the building of great towers of pride, like the Tower of Babel, where men attempted to build a structure to touch the heavens, an echo of his own original, failed rebellion. He was the master of illusion, transforming himself into an angel of light to deceive those who sought goodness, and into a terrifying fiend to strike fear into the hearts of men. He used every tool in his arsenal, greed, lust, envy, and pride, the very sins that had corrupted his own perfection. The very fabric of humanity was a tapestry woven with threads of both light and darkness. The world was filled with wickedness and violence. and the heart of man was constantly inclined toward evil. But even in this great darkness, a spark of the divine remained. Prophets and righteous men and women throughout the ages, from Noah to Abraham, from Moses to David, were raised up by the Creator to stand against the tide of sin. They were the beacons of hope, the remnants of a faithful humanity who resisted the temptations of the adversary. They were the living proof that even in a fallen world, man could choose to love and obey the Creator. But the great enemy, in his cunning, never ceased his attacks, always seeking to destroy these lights, to silence their voices, and to extinguish their faith. He knew that the ultimate defeat would come, not through a war in the heavens, but through the lineage of humanity itself. For a great prophecy was foretold in the first moments of his victory in Eden. After Adam and Eve had sinned, the Creator had spoken to the serpent and delivered the final crushing sentence. "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." This was the foretelling of a Saviour, a Messiah, born of a woman, who would one day come to undo the work of the adversary. It was the promise that his triumph was but a fleeting moment, and that his ultimate destiny was a final and crushing defeat. The light-bearer, now a master of darkness, spent the rest of his eternal life seeking to thwart this prophecy. He sought to corrupt the lineage through which the promised one would come. He tempted kings, he led nations astray, he instigated genocide and war, all in a frantic, desperate effort to prevent the heel that would one day crush his head. And in that moment, the eternal justice of the Creator will be made manifest. The light-bearer who chose darkness will be consumed by it, and the suffering he has caused for all of eternity will be returned to him in full measure. The long war between light and shadow, between good and evil, will finally conclude, and the glory of the Creator will shine forth once more, unblemished by the stain of sin. Thus ends the tale of the great tragedy, a sorrowful epic of a being who had it all, and chose to have nothing but himself. His story stands as the ultimate warning and the ultimate testament to the terrible power of pride and the tragic consequence of turning away from the light. And so, here we stand at the end of this journey, our hearts filled with the echoes of a war so ancient it predates time itself. You've heard a story of loss, of betrayal, and of a cosmic fall, and you've seen how the shadow of that event has touched every corner of our world. But this is not where the story ends. This is where your own journey begins. I hope that in these words you have found not just a tale of the past, but a healing balm for the soul, a light in the darkness that helps you understand the eternal struggle that lives within and around us. The story of the light-bearer's fall is not just about a demon. It is about the power of choice, the pain of pride, and the enduring promise of redemption. If you feel this video has brought a piece of value to your heart, if it has helped you find a glimpse of light in the midst of a dark day, then I humbly invite you to lend a little of your energy to this mission. Every gesture of support, no matter how small, is an invaluable blessing that allows me to continue sharing these timeless truths and creating a sanctuary of healing language. Thank you, with all my heart. The narrative of Lucifer's fall, the original sin, and the coming redemption is a tapestry of hope and warning. It is a story of how a celestial being chose to become the great deceiver, and how a loving God chose to restore humanity through a covenant. Perhaps the greatest question of all is not what he did, but what we will do with this knowledge. Will we choose to ascend in our own pride, or will we choose to walk in humility? Will we follow the path of the ancient serpent, or will we seek the truth and light that leads to salvation? What are your thoughts on this profound journey? Share them in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation.